Welcome to Life is for Living. I'm your host, Kylee Buckley, and I'm here with David J Riddell from the School of Living Wisdom. We are going through the material in David's book on the crazy maker, the borderline personality disorder, and we're just going through points that can help recognize these sorts of people so that we know what we are dealing with. So, thank you for joining us again, David.
Yes, nice to be here. And I think it's timely that we deal with this subject because the word narcissism is being bandied around a lot these days. It's quite a buzzword, narcissistic personality disorder, etc. And there's no doubt that these people who qualify for that diagnosis have a massive arsenal of weapons that they use to beat people into subjugation or into conformity, and they can be pretty tough to live with, to work for, to be married to. And what I want to do here with this list is look at survival kits, look at defense mechanisms, and just see what we find. And this particular one is about the ability to avoid ever being pinned down. So they might avoid doctor's appointments because now the tragic consequences of poor diet and promiscuity and lack of exercise and smoking and alcohol, the pigeons are coming home to roost. And so they stay in denial rather than get onto it early. They don't listen to their bodies, and their bodies have been trying to warn them for years that this is not sustainable. But they turn deaf ears to the people who warn them and try to correct them. They prefer to live in denial and escape being pinned down. And if somebody does try to pin them down, they can get sick in order to avoid the interview, or they will find something else to distract themselves with. So
Mhm.
it's very hard. Sometimes you've got to send the bailiffs in, or you've got to send the police in to get an eviction. Um, Take them to a counsellor and see what happens. They're probably going to wriggle and jiggle to avoid the being pinned down. And for me as a counsellor, it reminds me of chasing soap around the shower, trying to pin them down to what they're actually doing to wreck their health or their marriage or their children's lives. But it has to be done because uh, to succeed in this life, you must first learn how to live in reality. And
Mhm.
staying in reality is not a strong point for the borderline personality disorder. They're much better known for preferring to live in denial, actually.
Mhm. Okay, we've got another point here. They isolates their host, usually with fear tactics, to keep them separated from outside support.
Well, part of them is monitoring their behavior, and they know that what they're doing is socially unacceptable. It's neither respectful, it's neither kind, it's dominating, it's manipulative.
Mhm.
And so they don't want the people they are dominating to spend too much time with those who can see through the nonsense.
Mhm.
And they'll try and come between their wife, their husband, and the support person who could face them down and call them out on their nonsense. And children find that their little friends are not welcome to come home with them because their little friends could come in and see what's going on and expose it as not normal.
Mhm.
Uh, and she's not the wife, the female partner, is not encouraged to get out there and mix it up because they see that the way they're being treated at home is not the way other women are being treated, and,
Right.
and vice versa. So, isolation of their host reminds us that this is a codependent relationship. Somebody's got far too much power and somebody hasn't got a balance of power with them. And
Mhm.
that's how we know it's codependent. Things are not properly negotiated. There's not mutual respect. There's not mutual listening going on. Oh, yes, they both might claim that there is, but it quickly becomes apparent to an observer that this relationship has one person, almost a parasite, living off the energy of the other.
Mhm. Interesting. Point number 13, makes love ambivalently.
Well, you're never quite certain whether it's consensual sex and both are invested in it, or whether somebody's going to end up deeply resentful, hostile, and playing the role of the victim after it's all over.
Mhm.
Because crazy makers are not good at stating their needs or saying what they need. There's a lot of implications and a lot of second guessing going on in the bed of a couple of crazy makers, and it's not a safe place to be. The whole point of trust is that when you go to bed with somebody, you trust them. There's going to be no nonsense because, well, both of them are an extremely vulnerable at that point, and I don't just mean physically, I mean emotionally as well.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, men call some girls jailbait, and there's a good reason for that. Some young girls certainly are jailbait. But then we also know that we don't want to get entangled with a spinner or somebody who's high maintenance.
Mhm.
That's what we're talking about. All crazy makers are high maintenance people, very emotionally unstable and very viscous, very mercurial in their perspective and in their outlook.
Right. Gifts with strings attached.
Hmm. Well, gifts from a crazy maker are not actually expressions of love, they're leverage.
Hmm.
A crazy maker cannot give a gift that isn't somehow being leveraged. And
Mm.
one day there's going to be a you owe me, or there's going to be after all I've done for you, or, there's a debt to pay here that you didn't even know about.
Mm.
And so, yeah, parents are not above doing this to the son-in-law or the daughter-in-law, and husbands and wives are not above doing this to each other. Certainly, parents will do it to their children to keep the children from pressing on the parents' bruises and unbearable feelings, maybe powerlessness, maybe disappointment, maybe guilt. And so gifts come with strings attached.
Okay, center of attention by holding the floor, upstaging the star, or being the life and the soul of the party.
Well, parasites live off external sources of emotional energy, and adulation is a source of emotional energy. Attention is a source of emotional energy. Popularity is a source of emotional energy. And if somebody's going to upstage you, but you are depending on that public acclamation for your own self worth and self esteem, then jealousy is going to be your constant companion, stalking you at all times in case somebody comes between you and your lifeblood supply of adulation.
Mm. Okay, pretends to be the victim.
Well, here we've got the bully who acts like the victim. Here we've got the perpetrator who pretends to be the powerless victim. They win the sympathy vote every time, but they can also create chaos by the psychosis or psychotic belief that they are the disadvantaged party here, when actually they are squarely the cause of the problem.
Yeah.
It's projection at its worst, it's self-delusion, and it's denial. And it's a terrible thing to see and a worse thing to live with and work with. And sometimes whole countries can have a sub-gender of people, a sub-society of people who have been playing the role of the victim and getting whatever they can for this claim that they have been humiliated and powerless, going back generations, and they're milking it for all it's worth. They basically live by invoking guilt.
That's interesting. Hey, would you say that this point, number 16 in your book, would be what every crazy maker has? This would be one of the big.
Yes, it's certainly one of the standout characteristics. That's right. Couldn't say every crazy maker, no, but it's certainly one of them.
Right. Okay. All right. Number 17 is unable to identify or stay with the real issue.
Well, you've heard that saying, some players play the player, some players play the ball, some players don't even know the rules of the game. They just go for the player. And the crazy maker's a bit like that. They boil everything down to it's personal and it's between you and me, and they do take everything personally. Because as I said in another section of this interview, insecure people do take everything personally. They haven't individuated yet. They've never got on their own 2 feet. They haven't settled the question, well, am I okay or aren't I? That's never been settled, and as a result, they are drowning in slow motion underneath the waters of self-rejection and self-hatred.
When you say that they haven't individuated, does that mean that they haven't actually lived life on their own, fully responsible for themselves, without a partner, without parents? Is that what you mean when you say fully individuated?
Yes, it is, but it's also completing the task of teenage years, which is to establish essential worth and value, self-worth and self-value, so they become secure in themselves and they're not accumulating externals around them to try and booster and bolster their sagging, flagging ego.
Right.
Individuation is also about not having to treat everybody else as a mirror to your own worth and value. You're not competing with everybody else. You're centered, you're calm, you're secure, you're okay, you've individuated.
Because I would call that maturity. They're maturing into their own, coming into their own being, their own person.
And they've also arrested in their development, if they still don't believe that they're okay in themselves, or if they're still taking everything personally, or if they're still trying to self-medicate for a psychological wound like despair or self-hatred or powerlessness.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. We'll use the children as remuneration and leverage by restricting or preventing access or bad-mouthing the other parent to justify themselves and turn the children against the other.
One of the saddest things I see in weekly sessions with couples divorcing and splitting up and doing material division is the propensity of the crazy maker in the relationship, the psychopathic tendencies in one parent or the other to just simply use the children as leverage, use them for collateral, claim all of the child care allowances or claim total custody of the children and then use time with the children as a bargaining chip and as leverage to get what they want from the other spouse. And such people are some of the most self-deluded and evil people that I get to work with. They will often claim it to be for the best interests of the child, but it is hard, it's purely selfish. And this does not include, I repeat, not include cases where genuine protection of a child demands very limited access by a violent parent.
Yes, children do need to know both parents. It's very important.
And they need to know that they are safe.
Mm. Okay, number 19, children stop trusting them or strive to please them or come away upset every time they visit. There's hurt and chaos after every visit, and eventually contact is avoided completely. Or the crazy maker is just held at arm's length. Yeah.
Well, children may not be able to tell you how a crazy maker operates, but they will tell you that actually they don't like mum or they don't like dad very much and they don't want to spend time with them, and they come away upset every time they stay with them. And I'm not talking about a parent who's exercising kindly, gentle discipline. I'm talking about a parent who's dumping their own stuff on the kid, and the kid is being used as a whipping boy, and they just do not want to spend time with that person. And sometimes the court forces them or forces their parent to push them into the arms of the crazy maker parent. And that can break my heart when I watch that happening. It's very sad to see.
Okay, and the very last one is communicates in demands and verdicts, not requests or propositions, due to having no negotiation skills.
Well, people who do verdict communication can't bear other people to come back at them with a counter proposition. It's got to be my way or the highway. Why? Because they're drowning in powerlessness already, and any sign that they can't get 100% of what they want means that they're going to disappear out of sight, glub, 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 and they can't allow that to happen. And so they demonstrate to the world that they have no negotiation skills due to their parents' role modeling usually. My way or the highway is their parents' legacy to them and will become their legacy to their children. Now, the problem with that is that when one person insists on 100% compliance, the other person has to disappear. They have to shut down and go within themselves to survive that, or they have to leave home. Only three choices, really. Walk away, collapse inside of yourself, or just keep fighting. And the problem with continuing to fight is that the teenagers don't want to be at home anymore. They are very sensitive to that tension in the air between arguing parents. They need emotional peace and they don't want to be at home when parents are fighting. So I usually find out, helping these people, which one of them has no counter proposition skills, because that's where it all breaks down. Your spouse communicates to you in a verdict and there's nothing you can do about it. Where do you go from there?
That's right. You need to negotiate.
And I believe that negotiation really is the king of the life skills, and it's almost always a skill that the crazy maker is completely missing. And if the term crazy maker offends you, well, I don't mean to be derogatory. I'm just doing my best to express the wake of trouble that follows them wherever they go. And if you prefer a psychopath or narcissist or borderline personality disorder, that's okay too. But I think the best description as I started this program is the single agenda person, the
Mhm.
magnet that rules the compass, the one ring to rule them all. What is that single agenda? Well, it's different in every crazy maker, but it almost always turns out to be one of four unbearable feelings. Can you remember them? Number one, rejection and abandonment. Number two, powerlessness. Number three, disappointment. And number four, guilt. Those are the big four. And those are the four we've got to watch out for. And if I can find those and heal them, this person can go from being in denial, irrational, thin-skinned, and overreacting to a normal person in
Mhm.
48 to 52 hours. It's that
Wow.
quick when they get it. But they have to be taught how to sit with their monstrous emotion. Their, if you're Dutch, the ondraaglijk emotie. And they have to learn how to sit with that hideous emotion and learn to bear it in order to come back to normalcy.
Yes. So
That was interesting, wasn't it?
it was. Well, look, you've just got here in the summary a little test to see if you have any of these characteristics. Okay, one, have you really accepted the sovereignty of those you love and practice positioning rather than pushing? And sovereignty means their free will, that they don't want to, or they may want to. It's up to them. They have a choice. Do you accept somebody's sovereignty of those that you love?
That's right. We call that respect. And these people are not really big on showing respect. Again, I have to say their own hidden agenda swamps the practice of respecting others. And respect begins with understanding that they are a sovereign being. They will become who they will become.
Yes, yes. Okay, number two, does your love for them benefit them? Or is it really all to benefit you? The more pain you are in, the more narcissistic you will be.
Yeah, it's true. And even rescuers are narcissistic lovers because they're really rescuing for their own benefit rather than for the benefit of the other person. Enabling might be a better term. Take your pick. The English say rescuing, the Americans say enabling. But the point we're making here is that it is counterfeit love because it's counterfeit in your own interests rather than in the other person's best interests.
That's interesting because you think if you're rescuing someone that it will be in their interest to help them, but it's not because they need to help themselves.
Look deeper. Are you giving them a hand out, which is for your own benefit, or a hand up, which is for their benefit?
Mhm. Okay, number three. This is a biggie. Are they teachable? Are you
Well,
teachable?
really, what hope is there for an unteachable person? They're a law unto themselves. They're in denial about whatever the problem is. And if they just get angry whenever they're corrected, they prove to the world that their brain cannot make the distinction between correction and getting rubbed out or rejected. If I can heal that, then they can go back to learning, developing, and progressing. But if they can't receive that from me because they're in arrested development, I've got bad news for them and for their families. That's where they're going to sit down and that's where they're going to stay.
Hmm. Can you be vulnerable and listen to the truth about yourself without misconstruing it as an attack or rejection?
And that takes me back to one of our original talks on the default mood. the default mood to feel accused, to feel inadequate, to feel put down, to feel unheard. These are very common and very dangerous automatic emotions.
Mm, interesting. Okay. Do you have negotiating skills?
Well, if you can't counter proposition, the answer is no, you don't. And if you can't even proposition, the answer is no, you don't. You're going to have to hide behind verdicts or silence all of your days. And none of those options will allow you to love or be loved in your marriage and in your life.
Mhm. Well, this is a big topic, and you've just got here in summary, David, that love and respect is a luxury that only the pain-free can afford.
Hurting people are hurting people because they're hurting. And the more pain you're in, the less you can love and consider other people. It's all about me when I'm drowning, make no mistake. And until I no longer believe I'm drowning, I'm not going to have emotional space or energy to help you, think about you, or listen to your pain. I'm sorry. It doesn't work like that.
Mhm. So to have the best life, guys, and the best marriage, we need to work on ourselves and get ourselves to be the best that we can be so we can communicate freely, listen to each other freely, hear the other people, accommodate each other. That's true love and respect, yeah?
Find your most unbearable feeling, the one that steers the course of your life. Find it and fix it by getting used to it. Then you can learn how to love.
Yes. Thanks, David.
My pleasure. Hope it's been helpful.
It's been amazing. Bye, everybody.
God bless.